Hello friends, I am Arpit and now I am here with the Yojana analysis for the month of January 2025. As we cover every month, we will be covering this month's Yojana as well in three parts. The topics which we will be covering in the first part, we will be talking about historical perspectives on Indian knowledge systems, IKS. Indian knowledge systems, they were existing since the ancient history. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Upvedas. They were talking about material knowledge as well as spiritual knowledge. They aimed to strike a balance between both. But with the advent of the Britishers, these kind of learning systems started being considered as inferior. And, importance was given to the British curricula or the Western or European curricula, which was based on, I would say, a modern thought, or I would say scientific inventions, and subjects like physics, chemistry, maths, biology, etc. were introduced. But yes, that doesn't mean that the Indian knowledge system has to fade away. Second topic which we will be discussing is decolonization of the mind through Indian knowledge systems. Decolonization of the mind through Indian knowledge systems is simply referring to that in our minds, we have to, not downgrade our Indian knowledge systems. We have to promote it not only at the domestic level, but at the global stage as well. Because in our knowledge system, there are answers to many miseries or many problems the world is facing right now, like climate change, sustainable living, or for that matter, Ayurveda, yoga, and all. They are very vital contributors in the healthcare setup. So we need to decolonize it first, and we need to, proudly promote it. So in the first part, we will be dealing with these two topics. In the second part, we will be dealing with emotional intelligence in public administration, a Buddhist approach. This is very much important as in context of GS4, that is ethics, because emotional intelligence is a topic in itself in that particular subject. Then Sanskrit as a knowledge system, how Sanskrit was known as a knowledge system and what treasure trove of knowledge it holds right now. But again, the challenge is that its usage, its relevance has dropped a lot. And then in the third part, we will be talking about cooperative approach to Jan Aushadhi Kendras. Jan Aushadhi Kendras are established as per the Prime Minister's Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, which aims at selling generic medicines. What is the cooperative approach with respect to that we will talk. And global capability centers, they have been established. What are they? What are the basics of these and what is going to be their impact? Now these three parts we will be dealing with, these six topics we will be covering, and let's get started with the first part where we will be covering these two topics, that is historical perspective on the Indian knowledge system, and second is decolonization of the mind through Indian knowledge systems. So first topic, that is historical perspective of the Indian knowledge system. Now first you need to understand what is Indian knowledge system. Indian knowledge system, lot of I would say knowledge was circulating since the ancient past. There were the Vedas, there were the epics, Puranas, Upvedas, Upanishads, and such like. All in all, if I have to say that the Indian knowledge system was dealing with spiritual aspects as well as the material aspects. And that is why it was vast. And this Indian knowledge system was transferred from generation to generation orally. So, as I said, it combines both spiritual and material knowledge, impacting not only India but also a global thought was there. Concepts like Vasudev Kutumbakam, the world is our family, was rooted in the Indian knowledge systems. Yoga was rooted in the Indian knowledge systems. Ayurveda in the Indian knowledge systems. So, the thought of Vedanta, Indian knowledge system, it is dealing with the spiritual aspect. In 2020, Ministry of Education in India set up the IKS division, means Indian Knowledge Systems division, to document and promote this rich heritage for modern times. Actually, when the Britishers came, they started promoting a narrative in India that this Indian knowledge system is inferior to the Eurocentric curriculum. And they started promoting their curriculum. In 1835, the Macaulay Award was announced, which introduced the modern education into India. And now we are relying more upon the modern education system, and we considered the Indian knowledge systems as inferior. However, this is something which we are missing out on as Indians. We need to promote it. We need to strike a balance between the Indian knowledge systems and the modern knowledge systems. If we have this treasure trove of knowledge, of our ancient knowledge, the tradition is there, then we should make use of it to find answers to the current day problems like climate change, global warming, sustainable livings, and such like. Now, as the Isavasyopanishad teaches, true knowledge, that is Vidya, is a balance of spiritual and material understanding which leads to a harmonious life. So, Indian knowledge system had spiritual as well as material knowledge, and the true Vidya is a balance between both of them. Now, what are the characteristics of Indian knowledge system? It deals with holistic knowledge. Is holistic means integrates both spiritual, higher knowledge and material, practical knowledge aspects. Goal of IKS is to help individuals and society live well, achieve liberation. Liberation means freedom from suffering and lead a balanced life. IKS has been passed down orally for thousands of years, and I believe that this oral passing of the Indian knowledge system down the generations has somewhere, diluted it and made it lose its relevance, made it lose its importance also. But anyways, what has been done has been done. Despite being ancient, IKS has adapted over time to meet the changing needs of the society, yet core ideas remain intact. The core ideas like sustainable living, harmonious living with the nature, all these are very important in the present day scenario when we are living in a time where we are suffering from climate change. We are suffering from environment degradation, where there is more competition for the resources like water. So all these ideas were rooted in our Indian knowledge systems. But yes, we need to revive it. We need to apply it in our lives. We first of all no need to consider it as inferior. We need to decolonize our minds, which have been colonized by the Britishers. This is what we need to understand. Now, talking about the Vedas, the key components of Indian knowledge system. First is Vedas. Vedas are the oldest and most important text in the Indian knowledge systems. They are made up of Rig Veda. It is the oldest Veda. It has all the hymns and all. Then we have the Sam Veda. It is talking about plants and intoxicating materials and such like. Atharva Veda, talking about warfare. And Yajur Veda, it talks about other material things in life. These texts cover a wide range of subjects, including spirituality, rituals, governance, and natural sciences as well. Then Upvedas. They are specialized knowledge systems. They have knowledge in specialized domains like Ayurveda, medicine, Dhanurveda, warfare and archery, Gandharva Veda, performing arts like music and dance, and Shilpa Veda is architecture. So all this is what? This is material knowledge. And Rig Veda is spiritual knowledge. It's a classic example of spiritual knowledge, and Indian knowledge systems has both spiritual as well as the material aspects covered. Third component is Upanishads. They are philosophical texts, and again we go into the philosophical aspect, spiritual aspect, that discuss the nature of reality, consciousness, and liberation. They introduce the concepts of Paravidya, means higher knowledge, and Aparavidya means lower or material knowledge. Again, Upanishads is an epitome of both, spiritual as well as material knowledge, a classic example of the Indian knowledge systems. Puranas. They are narrative texts that tell stories of creation and destruction of the universe, and they also cover cultural history and societal norms. For example, Brahma Vaivarta Purana discusses concepts that resemble the modern scientific ideas like time relativity and such like. So means we were talking about such ideas back then. We were also, knowing a lot about the universe, the cosmos. We here were the inventors of zero. We here were the first ones to know that Earth is not at the center of the solar system. The sun is at the center of the solar system. Earth, along with other planets, is revolving around the sun. And this was all done without scientific evidences. This was there in our Indian knowledge systems. Amazing, isn't it? Yes, indeed it is. The contributions of Indian knowledge systems. What have been the contributions? Philosophy and ethics. Indian philosophy balances spiritual wisdom with material concerns. The Bhagavad Gita, a key text, provides ethical guidance on duty, life, and the importance of balance. So, yes, if anybody has read Bhagavad Gita, definitely it is very much useful in the present day scenario. And it will be useful at, you know, every aspect of your life, your work, your personal well-being, your personal life, everything. So, this becomes an important text in the present day scenario. Then next is mathematics and astronomy. Indian scholars like Aryabhatta, Vaharamira and Bodhyana contributed significantly to mathematics like trigonometry and calculus, and astronomy like time measurement, celestial movement and such like. So contributions of the Indian knowledge systems to philosophy, ethics, mathematics, astronomy have been immense. The present day concepts in astronomy and all, they are, somewhere connected with the findings of the Indian knowledge systems in the past. Now, talking about the third aspect, that is medicine. Ayurveda is a traditional medical system focusing on balance in the body, mind, and spirit. Sushruta is famous for his pioneering surgical techniques, including cataract removal. So, at that time, we were doing all these things. The Siddha medical system, practiced in Tamil Nadu, emphasizes holistic health with herbal treatments. Kind of it is similar to Ayurveda, but yes, this is another form of medicine. So that was also very much important at that time. And in present day scenario, there are many cures in medical sciences which are found in these traditional forms of medicines. Next, art and culture. Natya Shastra, written by Bharat Muni, covers drama, music, dance, sculpture, and architecture, connecting them to spiritual and religious themes. Technology and crafts. Indian innovations in fields like metallurgy, example Iron Pillar of Delhi, weaving Muga silk and ceramics from regions like Assam are famous for their advanced technology. Nobody in the world as of now has been able to create rust-free iron. But there are some pillars, like a pillar in Delhi, Mehrauli, and somewhere in South India also there is some same kind of pillar. They've been standing for hundreds of years without getting rusted. And they are in the open, rain falls, moisture is there in the air, but we cannot see rust on them. That was the level of engineering and metallurgy we were doing hundreds of years ago, while in the present day scenario, we are not able to find rust-free irons. But we achieved that hundreds of years ago. Unfortunately, that was not documented. That was the biggest flaw of that. It is being passed on orally, no, generation after generation. If that would have been documented, then we would have been producing rust-free iron, and that would have definitely changed the scenarios in the world right now. Now, historical timelines and documentation. The oral tradition was there for thousands of years. Knowledge was passed orally from teacher to student, which kept it alive through generations. Documented texts. The Vedas were written around 1500 BC, though they are thought to be much older. But yes, as of now, we will consider 1500 BC. Puranas were written between 4th century BC and 11th century CE, documenting creation myths and the evolution of society. The Ramayana and Mahabharata, these are the two epics which are the greatest epics in Indian history. They not only tell stories but also offer moral guidance to us. So this is these are the documented texts, but yes, before that there was this tradition of passing on orally from one generation to the other generation. Then came the Britishers, and then came the challenges to our Indian knowledge system. It started to decline. Why? Because Western education was introduced. A lot of misunderstandings, false narratives were created by the Britishers, which created such a false image of the Indian knowledge systems that it is kind of, uh, backward, old, obsolete, non-relevant and such like. Now, what is the modern relevance and revival? Recognition and integration. International Yoga Day, June 21, we started observing it, and it is a global celebration now since 2015, I would say. It not only promotes physical but also mental health. Practices like organic farming and traditional medicine are being recognized for their contributions to sustainability and health. Now we've started to look towards our Indian knowledge systems, which were considered as obsolete. NEP 2020 and policy frameworks, we have included the, I would say, Indian knowledge system. It encourages integrating IKS, Indian knowledge system, into the educational systems, promoting the link between traditional knowledge and modern science. I'm not saying that we should give up on modern science. Obviously, the world runs on modern science. We cannot ignore it, but we should not ignore the Indian knowledge systems either. We need to create a balance. That will be true Vidya in its exceptional sense, and this definitely can be a defining factor for Indians globally. Practical applications of the Indian knowledge systems are there for the current day problems. That is why I say that this combination of the modern systems as well as the Indian knowledge systems should be there so that we can find better solutions to these problems. Sustainable architecture inspired by ancient practices is gaining traction. Ayurveda and Siddha systems are being used for preventive healthcare. Ethical frameworks from Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads are applied in modern issues like business ethics and personal development. So, there are practical applications of the Indian knowledge systems in the present day scenario. Then there is this interdisciplinary research. IKS is being used in areas like environment conservation, artificial intelligence, and ethical technology as well. Then tribal and regional knowledge. That is also being conserved because there were many, I would say, cures which the tribal people had of certain diseases. They did not go to the hospitals built by the Britishers and such like. They treated those things in among themselves only. They depended upon the resources from the jungles. So that is called as the tribal knowledge systems. So we are making efforts to revive that also. Revive local knowledge systems from regions like Northeast India, Tamil Nadu, and integrating these into the broader knowledge landscape. This definitely is going to be a game changer if we are able to do so. We, you know, at times refer to ourselves as Vishwa Guru. Although I personally believe that as of now, we are not in such a situation to call ourselves Vishwa Guru. We are in a situation to call ourselves Vishwa Mitra, but not Vishwa Guru. So, this definitely, if we start promoting this balance between Indian knowledge systems and the modern systems, if we create such kind of curriculum in our schools and all, definitely we will be creating a workforce of the future which will be more considerate, which will be more, I would say, uh, wisdomful, and that can definitely make us Vishwaguru. There are certain challenges. These challenges are fragmented documentation because most of the Indian knowledge systems were transferred or passed on orally from one generation to the other generation. And due to that, it has got diluted. There are a lot of misinterpretations and incomplete knowledge transmission is also there. Then there was colonial influence, which further maligned these systems. But there are opportunities also. Collaboration between scholars, institutions, and communities can help restore and preserve IKS. Now, there was this initiative launched by Government of India last month. It was known as Swastik. Swastik was all about scientifically proving the elements of Indian knowledge system. Like for example, haldi or turmeric is good for your disease fighting. It is an antiviral and all, but we need to prove it scientifically. If we are able to prove it, then that element of Indian knowledge system definitely will be accepted globally. So this is how we can go ahead with it. Digitizing ancient texts and preserving oral traditions can make IKS more accessible. So we can do that. We are living in the digital age. We can apply that over there. Applying IKS to modern challenges such as climate change, health, and education could provide sustainable solutions. Definitely it will. So there are challenges, no doubt about the fact. The biggest challenge is fragmented documentation because of oral transmission. But yes, there are opportunities where we can document it digitally, we can apply it for solving the modern day challenges, and we definitely will be there at the global stage again, this time with our traditional knowledge. Now, the next topic is decolonization of mind through IKS. So, India, known as Gyan Bhuvi, land of knowledge, is the birthplace of rich intellectual traditions in philosophy, science, art, medicine, and spirituality. It is a form of structured framework based on ancient texts like the Vedas, Upanishads, Nyaya Shastras, which we saw as of now. However, during the colonial rule, Eurocentric ideas built such a narrative that these all, elements of the Indian knowledge systems were being considered inferior by the Indians only. And we started promoting Eurocentric ideas. We took Atiti Devo Bhava too literally. Means we started promoting whatever they said. But now is the time to decolonize the mind. Decolonization of the mind means reviving IKS, Indian knowledge systems, reshaping the way we view knowledge. Our knowledge is not inferior, and reclaiming India's intellectual identity on the world stage. Making June 21 being celebrated as the World International Yoga Day definitely is the step in this direction. We need to know, we need to let the world know that what treasure trove we have. That is yoga. And the world acknowledges it, especially after COVID. Now, how has the Indian knowledge system been through the ages? In the ancient period, foundation of knowledge which was being laid at that time, the philosophical foundation in Vedas and Upanishads, we saw it in the last topic. Now, these texts explore the nature of existence, the concept of self, that is Atman, and the ultimate reality, that is Brahman. And, you know, introduce the ideas about both the inner world, that is spirituality, and the outer world, that is cosmos. It talked about Nyaya, a logic based philosophy that promotes scientific inquiry and structured thinking, helping people understand and reason about the world. So, it was reasonable also. There was this Advaita Vedanta, a philosophy that argues for oneness of Atman, individual soul, and Brahman, universal soul, emphasizing unity and non duality as well. Scientific and mathematical achievements, I told you about zero. I told you about the, I would say, astronomical achievements. Ayurveda, we found, you know, uh, cure to diseases like cataract. We were the ones to do plastic surgery also, like it has been found during the Indus Valley civilization period. We were the ones to give zero and the decimal system also to the world. Definitely, it revolutionized mathematics. So it was not only spiritual aspect, it was material aspect also. That is why I've been saying that it was a balance between spiritual as well as material aspect. We've been talking about sustainability and ecological wisdom as well. Sustainable agriculture was practiced. Harmony between humans and the nature was taught, and it is very much reflected in Rabindranath Tagore's, finding of those schools which got recognition from UNESCO last year as well. Then community-based resource management was also talked about. The ancient practices such as forest and water management were based on sustainable and cooperative approaches that maintained balance with the environment. Can't they be adopted now? Definitely, it can be adopted. The community is there, the forest is there, forest degradation is also there. So we need to adopt these kind of approaches to tackle such kind of challenges. Then in the medieval period came the Bhakti movement. Bhakti movement was all about devotion. That is why Bhakti. Equality. Promoting vernacular languages, promoting gender equality. Saints like Kabir, Guru Nanak, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu focused on unity, faith, and liberation, aiming for social harmony and a universal sense of brotherhood. We have definitely included these kind of things in our constitution as well. There are fundamental duties. Then Jainism and Buddhism. Jainism talked about non-violence, self-discipline, jiva and ajiva. Buddhism, on the other hand, talked about or focused upon karma, action, and ethical living as the path of liberation. So that was in Jainism and Buddhism. But in the modern period came the Britishers. And then came certain disruptions to these Indian knowledge systems which were being transferred from generation to generation, although orally. But now they got a big challenge. The Britishers not only ruled over us, but they ruled psychologically also over us. They destroyed all those traditional practices. They made us believe that these traditional practices are inferior as compared to the European practices. Macaulay's Minute was adopted in 1835, according to which modern education crept into India. And during British rule, indigenous industries like textile, metallurgy were systematically dismantled because products made in the British industries had to flood the Indian markets. Traditional education systems were replaced with colonial institutions where modern education was being promoted. But again came some modern thinkers and philosophers in India, which reminded us that what treasure, what amount or what kind of treasure trove is there in our Indian knowledge systems. People like Swami Vivekanand or Shri Aurobindo or Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, they talked about it. They talked about rational education, universal religion. Sri Aurobindo talked about idealism and pragmatism. A middle path had to be adopted. And Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan talked about truth, unity, diversity, and such like. So he believed in the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. So these were the modern thinkers which were promoting balance and harmony between the traditional knowledge systems and the modern systems. But the colonial rulers did not let that prosper too much. So, what was the impact of colonization on in the Indian knowledge systems? Cultural subjugation, first of all. Colonialism made us believe that our knowledge systems or our traditional practices are inferior and the Eurocentric practices are superior. They labeled Chanakya as India's Machiavelli, which reduced his true depth and context. So just imagine how these Britishers used to do. They were killing us psychologically. They were, you know, degrading or making our cultural practices inferior in our eyes, in our perceptions. That was the level of, I would say, psychological warfare they were doing with us. Economic and educational disruption was there. Colonial policies led to the decline of indigenous industries such as textiles, metallurgy, and local craftsmanship. Traditional educational institutes were replaced with colonial schools that did not teach the native knowledge systems. Rather, they taught us the Eurocentric curricula. Mental colonization was there. So, certain, I would say, uh, Britishers only talked about this. So, Edward Said's Orientalism, he highlighted how the West perpetuated stereotypes of the East as backward, exotic, and primitive, which influenced colonial attitudes. Franz Fanon's Colonial Alienation addressed how colonized societies internalized a sense of inferiority. This sense of inferiority was internalized. The my bap culture was there. You are right, Britishers. Whatever you say, we will do. Your systems are better. You are better than us. All these kind of attitudes were, they crept in, seeing their own culture and knowledge as inferior to Western ideas. So that was how they did it. Now, decolonization of the mind through Indian knowledge systems. What this simply means that we have to revive our cultural identity. Decolonization of the mind begins with restoring pride in India's intellectual traditions. This does not mean that we will sideline the modern systems. The world runs on modern systems nowadays. The language of vertical mobility in terms of money is Western knowledge. No doubt about this fact, but in pursuing Western knowledge, we completely forgot our traditional knowledge. That completely forgetting our traditional knowledge should not be done. We should promote it and we should bring it at par with the Western systems and create a balance between them. That is what decolonization of the mind means. And that will begin if we start considering it as non-inferior. It is not inferior, it is at par, it is equally good. In some situations, it is better than the Western systems. We need to promote the use of regional languages and encouraging vernacular literature. That is what our NEP 2020 is doing. In the National Education Policy of 2020, vernacular languages are learning in vernacular languages is being promoted. So that is something remarkable. Then educational reforms. To decolonize education, it is necessary to incorporate Indian philosophies, sciences, and arts into the school curricula. Interdisciplinary research centers focused on IKS should be established to promote the study of Indian thought and knowledge systems alongside Western sciences. So that can be done. Global relevance of IKS, Ayurveda, and yoga. They already have popular global health. They are popular global health practices, particularly yoga. If I talk about, so if they can be, then Indian ecological practices such as sustainable farming, water management, all can also be taught to the world. Then sustainability and holistic development. IKS aligns with the global sustainable development goals, and these sustainable development goals have to be achieved by 2030. But the world is not moving at the pace through which it will achieve these goals. But yes, we emphasize on community based resource management, ethical consumerism, promoting a holistic approach to development, and all these are there part of the sustainable development goals. So we can focus upon it. Apart from it, the Indian knowledge systems can also give philosophical guidance. The philosophies like Nyaya, Vedanta, they exhibit, all those kind of ethical behaviors which are needed in the present day world. Bhagavad Gita definitely is a treasure trove of knowledge, is a treasure trove of ethical knowledge, I would say. This will help us, you know, address modern existential challenges like mental health or dilemmas or social conflicts. So it will lead to a better world. It will lead to the world as a family. Vasudev Kutumbakam definitely will be accomplished. So Indian knowledge system is very important. We should not actually consider it as inferior. We have done this mistake once when the Britishers were here, but now it's time to correct these mistakes. We need to strike a balance between the modern learning systems as well as the Indian knowledge systems. This is how, you know, sustainability will be there, harmony will be there, and the world will be a better place to live in. So, this is it from the first part. I will be meeting you in the second part with the remaining or the next two topics. And yes, see you soon. Till then, stay tuned. Namaste. Jai Hind.